And welcome back to Frontier House. This evening, we have with us the great Army leader of the venture capital and small and startup community, Mr. Spencer Pittman. Sam, welcome. Thank you for being here.
No, I'm glad to be here. I don't know if I'm the great and be all, but
of course you are.
So no,
we wouldn't have you here if you weren't.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So really quick, for anybody who doesn't know you at this point, who are you, what do you do, and where'd you kind of come from in the Army?
So I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Army, still active duty. Started my career off as a logistics officer, supporting special operations and a couple different units, and got to spend a couple years on Capitol Hill for the Army. So really got to see how the enterprise system of government works and the Army. And then a couple years ago down in Austin, Texas, the Army said, hey, we want you to come to this place called Army Applications Lab, create relationships with startups and venture capital. And I was very new to me. And so I said, all right, well, I need you to pay for me to have Facebook and PitchBook and LinkedIn. And we're going to start creating relationships and deal flow. And so then brought me here to where I am tonight, a new program called Army Fuze, where I'm the Private Capital Integrator for the Army. I'm trying to help create transparency of where we're investing.
So for those not familiar with what Army Fuze is kind of holistically, how do you explain it?
Yeah. So a lot of times you hear Army Fuze, you're thinking acronym, like, what does FUZ stand for? Like, no, actually, it's just a fuse. For the first time in the Army, they just said, hey, we're just going to call it Fuse, nothing else. It is made up of nothing new in the Army. So we took funding programs that were kind of siloed, put it under one umbrella called Army Fuze. It makes up about $750 million of the Army SBIR dollars, Small Business Innovation Research, and RDT&E. And the goal is to get companies that are having traction from the warfighter, find the program offices that'll catch it with their procurement dollars at the end of the day, and our job is to scale and bridge. So think of Fuze almost as a capital allocator, a bank, not necessarily running the programs, but we're funding organizations in the Army to scale their company's technology across the
When
valley.
Fuze was created, you had mentioned that it was made up of existing programs. What programs basically were brought together to make Fuze?
So four. So our portfolio would be four. So you could almost think of like a venture fund. We have 4 venture fund portfolios, which would be our pre-seed. We would call it X-Tech. X-Tech is a prize pitch competition, low bar for companies to get on stage. And if a company wins an X-Tech prize pitch competition of, from $10,000 to $200,000, they met competition requirements. They get the lights on at their facility for another month or two, but they met competition requirements. So now I can go into a direct to phase 2 SBIR with them or an RDT&E. The other portfolio is the Army SBIR portfolio, which makes up about $420 million a year. Army SBIR ran like any other SBIR organization fund. The other two is that really makes up Fuze, which gave us the dynamic agile ability, is Technology Maturation Initiative, about $250 million a year. And then our manufacturing technology portfolio, about $70 million a year. Technology Maturation Initiative, that's very agile funding for us to really get after scaling a capability. It's like 6.4 research development dollars.
Yeah, right. So let's pull the thread on that real quick. So Army Fuze, realistically, at X-Tech starts at the very beginning and kind of takes you all the way to, theoretically, you're actually a real company doing business with the Army now, right?
Oh.
Explain that.
100%.
What the continuum looks like.
Yeah, the continuum. So you'll hear like these, hey, we're having X-Tech Adaptive Strike, X-Tech Overwatch. One of these programs we did, X-Tech Overwatch, we were looking for unmanned ground vehicle systems, counter-UAS payloads, the orchestration layer of autonomy. We had a bunch of companies compete. 40 companies competed down to 20 down in the Bush Combat Center down at Texas A&M last year. Each of those companies won $20,000. 20 of those companies won a $20,000 check and won. And then where we use that pipeline to really start accelerating is those 20 companies, after they won that $20,000 check, they then immediately got a $2 million direct to phase 2 SBIR award to go through a workup cycle with 1st Cavalry Division. So then that just kicked off in January. So through that workup, out of those 20 companies, the idea and goal is there's already some companies already getting targeted for, hey, let's take our technology maturation funding and then start scaling a couple of these capabilities over. One, we have warfighter demand from 1st Cavalry Division, but what was really awesome is what we're really trying to make sure is the program office is plugged in. So we have the program office for CPE capabilities, portfolio executive autonomy at the life end of this pipeline. So the goal would be they would be bringing in the procurement dollars after 18 to 24 months of working with them.
It's almost like one of those like Olympic baton races where somebody's passing it to the next one, because that's always the problem. Is this valley of death is you get done working with an R&D shop, and then you're having a cold start from day one with the program office that at that point is years behind in budgeting.
100%. And that's what we found out before this whole new acquisition structure, especially when it came to cyber dollars. Is really spent a lot of time in your development centers, in your research labs, and you would talk to those companies who worked in those labs for 3 years, and they said, we've never even talked to a program officer or a portfolio or a PEO at the time, portfolio acquisition executive. And now we're saying, hey, if you're going to work on a lab project, we need to get the portfolio, the PAE involved before we provide funding, because we don't want you getting lost, and we want to, if your stuff doesn't stink and you can make it through, you make it through, and somebody's already tracking you. That's the goal. It's getting people involved.
No, it's genius, and it uses programs that already exist. So you're not reinventing anything. They're funded. So that whole continuum has how much money total?
$750 million. The whole continuum.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Those are real dollars.
Real dollars. And then we're trying to communicate this back to my role with private capital and venture capital is, here's some companies that are under contract with us. These companies, we'll reach out to them, say, hey, who's raising capital in the next 6 months? Some will say we're raising a Series A, $10 million.
Perfect segue. It's almost like you knew what my next question was. What is a private capital integrator?
So the private capital integrator, my role is to create the deal flow for venture capital, not just venture capital, but private capital allocators, whether it's debt financing. And if a company is trying to raise capital and they're working with the Army, we'll push that out to our network and say, hey, here's companies that are working with the Army. They're raising, a certain amount, or they're needing some debt financing. If it works for your business thesis and their thesis, you know who to talk to. If they're looking at doing some due diligence on does this company really have any traction in the Army, come talk to me. We bring in the right stakeholders to talk about that technology with the investor. So the investors, because if investor doesn't win with his investments, the Army's not going to win with the capabilities we're trying to get. And so that's the whole goal.
And for somebody on, say, the investor side, I think this is probably common business that you have people all over different industries that are scouting the latest and greatest.
And they do it better.
This is very unprecedented in the military, though, right? That you're creating that direct line of communication to the capital community as a uniformed military member. Right?
Yeah. Like that X-Tech Overwatch program I mentioned, we brought out about 26 venture capitalists to be in the field while those companies were experimenting with the soldiers, and then they got to hear these soldiers talk about how that company's technology worked. And really what we're trying to do is maybe those companies are raising funds and those VCs are there, or that VC has a portfolio company working in some market, not even thinking about government, because who wants to work with government? It's so hard. That they bring that company to us, say, hey, they're already working in the medical community. They're working in the food market and this industry. You should be working with them.
And as you're looking at that from the Army side, you're saying this is proven technology, right? It's already out there. It's being used.
We're buying down risk for investors. Companies can get hands-on live feedback from soldiers. And the Army used to have like these test soldiers, and we do, but we're saying, no, go to our operational divisions and brigades, your 1st Cavalry Division, your 4th Infantry Division, your 25th Infantry Division out in Hawaii. Get companies out there, plug with the actual users that are going to deploy and use these technologies, and get your feedback and let these companies iterate. I mean, that's the goal.
Right. So last question, 2 parts, right? One, let's just pull on that last thread. Who are you focused on? Even though JSIDS is dead now, what are your requirements, or where are you looking for that need? And then more broadly at the Army level, where do you see the Army investment portfolio or the Army investment thesis going in the 1, 3, 5 year kind of horizon?
Yeah. So where we're getting our demand, let's say our demand signal, and Secretary Driscoll was very big on this, is like, listen to the warfighters. What do they want? Program offices would build platforms that didn't fit with how a soldier used it in its everyday life. And so reaching out, these units from like 4th Infantry Division and 25th ID, they are saying, hey, we need this capability. We're working with this company. We really like it. And so then they're feeding that up to us. And then our goal is almost like Fuze, we would say, be almost like a merchant banker to bring in the folks that are going to be doing the buying, the PAEs, to bring those in. And that's how we're trying to fund that capability. Where's the Army going with this in the future is it's the deal flow of things that we're looking for in the future. Arctic expeditionary power. We need that capability in different austere environments for our soldiers to be able to power their devices and their drones in extreme places. And so we will communicate out that to the venture capital community, say, hey, we're looking for these thresholds of power generation. What companies do you know doing this? And there's probably some company on the commercial market. So the future is be a better customer, Army, because we sucked at that for so long. And let's let these investors, I think a lot of, I could go on a tangent for a second. I think a lot of the folks are like, especially in the Army and the government side, like investors, we can't be communicating to investors. And we're like, no, if you look at the Federal Acquisition Regulation, it says communicate your requirements or needs to industry and let them react. Investors are just another tool of industry. And so you can't separate the two. And so that's really the approach we're taking in the Army.
I love it. Okay, so if this is the first time anybody's heard about Army Fuze, what do they follow? Where do they find the next opportunity? How do they engage with you?
Our website is www.pit.army.mil.
And we'll link all that.
The PIT, the Army Fuze falls under what's called the PIT, the Path to Innovative Technology. We're the capital provider for it. And we're supposed to be like injecting new innovative capabilities into the PAE. I would highly recommend this is so easy to do, like Google, just X-Tech Army. You can find all our competitions. And what's great about what we're doing in the Army is I'm sure everybody's like, well, there's so many innovation organizations out there. We've actually siloed it under one umbrella to be able to better facilitate units looking for technology, innovative technology, and funneling it up. And that's through Army Fuze and through the PIT, the Path of Innovative Technology. And
last note, plug your upcoming event. You have an X-Tech coming up, I think, next week, right?
We do. We're going to be down in Miami at Emerge. It'll be called X-Tech Emerge. The customer behind those X-Tech event is going to be the 101st out at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And so any of our X-Techs, what's great is they have a customer in it. And also, I'll plug in, we're doing a hackathon.
Beautiful.
We're partnering with a couple of different VCs, May 2nd and 3rd out in San Francisco.
Beautiful.
And so we're trying to bring in new technology and make it move. And
Love it. We'll get all the links out there. We'll make sure everybody can connect with you. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for being here tonight with all the members of Frontier House and our extended family. And we're going to go upstairs and really get into it.
No, Mike, thanks. I think the Frontier House is awesome. And I'm glad we're creating a place for startups to really get plugged in with government and the right stakeholders to move their capabilities along.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
All right, let's go do it.